Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm Charlie Eisenhood, the editor. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Tuesday, August 20th, one day before the PDGA Pro World Championships. Sorry the pod's coming out late tonight, folks, but hopefully you have a chance to digest before everything gets rolling tomorrow. We wanted to have Jeff Spring on, so we had to wait until everybody got in. I'm in Virginia. He had to get into Virginia. So we're here. Josh, Worlds on deck. Brian gave us the course breakdown last week. I'm so fired up. It's go time. This is the one. This is the one. And man, Brian did a great job. If you haven't listened yet, you got to go check it out. We'll talk a little bit about the courses, but that really is going to set the stage for our discussion here, where we're going to talk about storylines and players. And boy, like, did Brian's discussion of the courses just get me so hyped. It's always hard knowing, with the new venue, what it's going to be like. Is it going to be properly tuned for the game? Is it going to be and provide both challenge, but also the visual appeal that we're looking for out of the most prestigious event that we have every year? And from Brian's description, it sounds like that's going to be the case. He did a great job of getting me hyped, and I'm ready to talk about some Worlds. Oh my gosh, there's so much to get to. Before we dive into Worlds, I do want to just quickly mention the 2025 DGPT schedule. It came out. When we have Jeff on, we'll talk about it more in detail. So we're not going to go deep on it here because we want to focus mostly on Worlds. But it still looks a lot like what we've become used to. But Josh, there are some notable changes. There's no Dynamic Disc Open. They've cut that event this year, and instead it's being replaced by the Kansas City Wide Open, of course, in Kansas City. We also have the addition of the Cascade Challenge up in Washington. They're also now combining the Portland tournaments into the Northwest Disc Golf Championship. So it's going to be 2 rounds at Milo McIver Riverbend Gold. It's going to be 2 rounds at Glendoveer East. Josh, this is the dream come true. And they're saying this is a part of wanting to set it up for a Worlds preview. We will ask Jeff about that, but that's another big change. No Jonesboro on the schedule for 2025. Another notable change. And then the last big one is that the Pro Tour Championship is scheduled to be in Lynchburg, Virginia, where I am coming to you right now. And so we'll see what's up with that because, of course, maybe the other bit of news to talk about is that Paul Macbeth posted that the county is going to maybe zap 7 holes over at New London with some new business developments, and they're going to just completely raise that section of the course. So unclear what that will mean. But Josh, first of all, just thoughts on the 2025 schedule overall.
Charlie, you skipped the most important part.
What did I miss?
Texas is down to 2, baby.
Texas down to 2.
Cuts the Texas swing in half. Man, wasn't that just great news. Listen, I think that they made a couple of changes that I really like. I'm so excited about the Northwest Challenge. I mean, that is poised to become one of the most, if not the most important event on tour. It pairs a historic course at Milo with the just excellent addition of Glendoveer in a very urban part of the country. I mean, this tournament could be a critical tournament.
It just
disc golf.
Never made sense to have 2 back-to-back tournaments in Portland. I'm sorry. I get that courses are good. I get all that, but they did the thing that they had to do. It's like the Democrats putting Kamala Harris on the ticket instead of Joe Biden. Like, they just did the thing that they had to do. I'm going to stop at some point with that kind of thing. They did what they had to do. It was the thing that was clearly needed to be done, and they did it. And it feels like many of the changes for this schedule this year were the exact same thing. Like, DDO, get out of here. Like, figure it out. You guys got to make the course better. You got to figure out how you're going to get spectators to come. Like, let's go to Kansas City. You guys, DD can still go be there in Kansas City and do all the hype at Kansas City. That's fine. But, let's actually watch the better course in a more populous location. Makes sense. They got Seattle on the tour. Makes sense. I just feel like largely this was a lot of common sense changes, and I also feel like there's a little more padding in the schedule, which I think some people maybe don't like, but I do. I really like not having to feel like I got to watch every weekend.
Yeah, it's and like you said, we'll see how it feels for other people. For us who are talking about tournaments, the cycle of recap and preview, it gets a little exhausting, and
having to watch week in and week out, it's hard.
It is, and so I think it's a good. I love the idea of every other week. Like, I think it's just a nice break. It gives the players time to travel. I also hate when players show up and they're like, yeah, I didn't have time. Like, I stayed an extra day, and so I'm playing the course blind. Like, that's not what we want either, for competition's sake. So lots of good changes. And while all in all, I think that the drastic changes aren't, there aren't a large number of drastic changes. A lot of these things have been done that I think are going to just create a quality of life feel for those of us who consume content from the Disc Golf Pro Tour and are fans of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, that I think we're going to finish next season with just a different sense of kind of like enjoyment and satisfaction because of some of these changes that they've been made.
Last thing, Europe. Here's the schedule for the European Pro Tour events. Konopiste, Ale Open on a truly magnificent course. PCS is back. That's July 4th weekend. Krokol the weekend after that, rolling right into the European Disc Golf Festival, which is a major. Then there is like 10 days off, and then Worlds in Finland. And then if you want to stick around, the Turku Open also happening. That's a lot of disc golf in Europe. You have back-to-back majors 10 days apart. We knew that was coming, Josh. I do think that it is going to feel like that European Disc Golf Festival is going to be like, it's going to have the Konopiste vibes. Like, people are going to be like, oh yeah, they won a major, but I mean, the field's going to be good because everyone's going to go there and play. And I'm sure it's going to be a cool tournament because we saw how much money and pomp and circumstance went into it this year. It's going to be hard for it to compete with Worlds so close together like that.
And that's definitely true. But the big issue that we had when we think about the major, that, Konopiste, as it was in previous years, it was, ready. Let me give you the list on the FPO side. For example, Evelina won her first major at Konopiste. Here's your competitors above 9-10 rated.
It's
right?
A fully unfair comparison.
It's a night and day difference, right? And it is. And so you're right. This course it's going to feel different. It is not. Listen, this course is not up to the same standards as the rest of the majors courses that we've had over the past 5 years. Maybe Champions Landing and Jones Supreme being the exception there. But
just what, DDO already gone. Let's say some parting shots.
That's right. But I think that the build around this, I think even like Des Moines and Preserve are going to be significantly smaller next year as compared to this year, because now with double the major, you just have so many more people who are going to be financially and otherwise incentivized to make the full trip over to Europe. And at the end of the day, it may not be the same as European Open, but the hype around the Worlds and being in Europe is going to lend awesome. Some of that to the it's worth it to have European Open there still.
I think in an ideal world where everybody was making a lot of money, we had millionaires playing disc golf, you would want to have the Estonian tournament be like at the front end of the swing, and then a bunch of other stuff, and then Worlds like a month later.
Yep.
But in the reality of disc golf as it is, that would be really kind of punishing to players who don't want to spend a month in Europe and like can't afford to do that. So having the majors back to back gives people an option to just come over for the majors. And I like that. I think that's a good compromise solution, and it just is what it is. Like we're going to look at that as a lesser than major. It is what it is, but it will also be cool because we'll be like, okay, like who's in form, who's ready to who take down Worlds in 10 days. So
we'll see. It's going to be good though. I'm very excited.
Overall,
schedule looks good.
I'm a fan. I think it's smart they left Charlotte for the Pro Tour Championship.
Agreed.
That wasn't working. It hasn't been working. I've been saying it every year.
I mean, honestly, when you look at like the two areas or tournaments in the same area, Waco to Austin.
Yep. But
Portland to Seattle.
They've
like,
done the obvious thing, which is stopping to try to demand that fans and volunteers and infrastructure be there for multiple tournaments in the same metro area.
Yeah,
they just stopped doing that, and it makes a lot of sense. I think Waco, like if you're a hardcore, you can go to both, but I think Waco will pull mostly from Dallas-Fort Worth, and then the Austin tournament will pull from Houston and San Antonio, and the Houston folks can take their pick.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest miss I see on here, Open at Austin being the 4-round Elite Plus event.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's a question mark to me. Like, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not sold. That, and I'm surprised Music City Open made the cut.
Nashville. They want to be in Nashville.
That's exactly right.
Sometimes it's about venue. It's about like location more than it's about the course. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, you're right. The course is not there.
No,
it's just not the same. All right, Worlds. Let's go. There's too much news happening. We had to get to that. So thank you for bearing with us. Here's what we're going to do first. We already talked about courses. I do want to quickly note, I was at the press conference for a little while today.
Okay.
And then I went and I took a cart tour around Ivy Hill.
Yeah.
So thank God I didn't have to walk it, because I don't know if I could have made it. It's so long. It's so demanding, and it's super hilly. Okay. So if you've been hearing the comps and you heard what Brian said last week, it's like toboggan-ish because of the elevation change.
Yeah.
And like I sort of see the comp, but it is very different. It is distinctly Heinoldian. Okay? There is OB absolutely everywhere. Okay? And I don't necessarily say that in a bad way. I think that it's done in an artful way, and the course is beautiful.
It looks beautiful.
It is sparkling, okay? I was extremely impressed with the infrastructure. Everything, OB stakes, perfectly clear. You'll be able to see them on camera. Painted lines everywhere, including across cart paths.
I thought they were supposed to do that between rounds 2 and 3.
That's the old school. That's the old school.
Oh, my bad.
Spectator rope, fully done. Everything there. Signage clear. It is beautiful. They have like little bleacher seating, like at various kind of smart spots around the course where people can just post up and sit and watch. I'm really impressed. I think it's going to be a great spectator experience because it's just like everything is very well put together. The course itself is going to be super tough. I'm calling FPO this weekend, so my focus was mostly on the FPO layout and the FPO tee pads and baskets. It is going to be a grind. I think, that and combined with New Orleans, like long arms only, you should not be looking at players like Owen
Don't say
or
it. No.
Emily Weatherman
You can't
as
say
potential
that.
winners this
Not
week.
the
I'm sorry,
dog.
that's just not the birdie. I know. There's just not the birdies out there if you don't have a long enough arm. There are certain holes where, and we'll see what ends up happening. But if you listen to the press conference, Owen talked about 13. It's a lot of the tee pads on this course are in OB, and you're throwing to a fairway that is somewhere between 100 and up to maybe 300 feet away from you, where you clear into the safety and land. It's not necessarily an island per se, but you have to get over an OB patch to get onto the fairway. On hole 13 for FPO, the carry to the very back left corner, where the OB kind of makes a corner, is 260 is what Nate Heinel told me. I did not measure it myself. It's basically just a flat shot, but the OB kind of is like going away from you, and the fairway. So like if you want to throw to the right-hand side, which is going to get you closer to the basket, you probably need to throw more like 350 and the more you can bite off, the easier your upshot is. It's got a low ceiling. But apparently some players are just straight up like dropping their disc into the OB and going to the drop zone because they're like, I can't make the shot. Now we'll see, because apparently they changed where the line is like relative to the tee a little bit a couple of days ago. And so maybe things have changed somewhat, but there's been a lot of chatter about that among FPO players. But that's just a small example of what is a course that is going to be super demanding. Some of the MPO baskets are like on hills that are like 40% grade, like super steep,
straight up,
like super, like, yes, like you're not even going to be able to keep a disc on the hill. You have to like crash the disc into the bottom of the hill and then putt up, and like maybe you're going to get lucky and it'll sit flat if you miss your putt. But really steep, lots of just enormous shots required. Like you have to be able to bomb. And you know, New London is not quite to that same extent. There are some shorter par threes, like don't get me wrong, but I think this is a kind of big arms only need apply, because it just feels like that's going to be the determining factor for FPO and maybe for MPO.
Maybe for MPO. Listen, I don't think that distance should be the only factor. And there are some courses that we've seen where big arms are advantaged, and it really feels like it's the only factor. That doesn't feel like the case to me. But at the World Championship, I don't think there's any problem with saying that those courses, you have to have distance. At the World Championships, the 5 rounds on 2 courses are designed to test a complete gambit of skills. The full,
I do think it does that.
set. And you know, the technicality, the OB, the putting, New London and the Ivy combined are, I think, really give the opportunity to do that. And I know some people might say, well, you know, on the FPO side especially, this is just not accessible to some players. I'm sorry, the World Championships are not designed to be accessible to all players.
Yeah.
They are designed to be accessible to the best of the best with a full skill set, and distance is part of that. Should not be the only thing, but I don't have a problem with that.
Yep. And look, there's like some pretty interesting risk reward decisions out here. There's definitely some interesting island carries. Hole 17, I was asking around a little bit. It sounds like basically nobody is going for it. There's an island layup spot short of the water, and then over the water you have the actual green, but there's a bunch of trees right in the front of the green. And even if I don't think FPO is going to have the arm, but the MPO players who might want to try to swing a hyzer wide around the trees and crash down in, the green is so skinny. Like I genuinely don't know if anyone's going to go for it unless it's like push comes
down by one,
and you have to go for it. And so we could see some really interesting stuff in those late rounds where players are feeling pushed. And like you could throw a straight shot that comes in under the like super low ceiling onto the green and be parked. But obviously, if you come in a little high, you're going to go long OB. If you come in a little short, you're going to go to the water OB. Mm-hmm. And if you miss right or left, you're going to hit the tree and end up in the OB. So it's gnarly.
It's going to be exciting. I'm excited to watch it.
All right. Should we talk storylines?
Storylines. I was just saying, let's talk about some storylines.
Let's go. I know the show, we've been a little light on the show the last couple of weeks. We only had one show last week, only one show week before that, but we're making up for it. 5 straight days of rapid reacts for our subscribers starting tomorrow. Pretty much immediately following the final putts for MPO, plus or minus a few minutes. So definitely stay tuned for that, and make sure to get yourself a subscription, discgolf.ultraworld.com/subscribe. Josh, why don't we start an MPO? What's your number one storyline coming into the weekend?
Number one to me, can Gannon add the big one to his resume? He is coming in my opinion, is the undisputed player of the year right now on the MPO side. He is playing excellent. He has now 2 majors to his name, and adds worlds, and that means he's just short Champions Cup. This one defines Gannon as the player of this generation. It's not the parody era; it's the Gannon era, and what a better way to usher that in with him taking down worlds. Just 2 years after he starts touring, and still only 19. That has to be the top storyline on the MPO side.
Gannon Buhr would become the youngest MPO world champion in 40 years. Since Sam Farron's in 1984.
Unbelievable.
And what's crazy is that he's the favorite.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
I think you have to be, if you're being honest, he's the favorite. And we're going to talk odds and picks after our interview with Jeff. And so we'll get into that. But I do think Gannon, given the level of form that we've seen from him, given the just incredible amount of focus that he's brought to this season, you're right. Like, if he comes out and plays okay and finishes top 5, which he probably will, because that's the level of play that he's brought to this season so far, it's still like he could still win Player of the Year.
Yes.
But it wouldn't feel like he'd really fully been the guy,
Especially if AB wins it or
right.
Calvin wins it, right? Like
Isaac
it's exactly
goes back to back.
Isaac goes back to back. Like they're
you gotta win Worlds.
Yes.
And if he wins it, it's like how much? Let's start counting the majors, because how long until he's going to be near the top of the list?
Yep.
And so there's a weird amount of pressure, I would say, on a player who's clearly having an amazing season and doesn't need a world championship to have a great season. He could not win again, and it would still be a great season. And he still, in theory, could win Player of the Year without another win this whole season.
Yep.
But it would still just feel like he missed the one that really mattered. And that's the whole point, right, of majors and of worlds, right?
Right.
You got to win these ones.
Got to win when it matters.
Whatever happened at Idlewild, who cares? Holland looked terrible at Idlewild. Okay, so what? None of that stuff matters, right? This is the one that people focus on for the whole season. People have been here playing. I think Gannon said he's played 6 or 7 practice rounds at New London in the last 2 weeks. This is serious stuff.
Yeah.
Ricky Iwasaki looked like a man possessed today in the press conference. Everybody wants it so bad. He got done with his press conference, and then immediately he was out there practicing putting. That's why you see the true champions of this sport continue to show up big in these spots. Like when Paul won it in 2022, right? He was kind of having a whatever season. He started to get a little bit into form, and then he won the Worlds. He could do it again. I don't know if he's got the distance these days, but obviously he knows New London. He built it.
Right. Yes.
But anyway, back to Gannon. Look, he's 4-1 in 4-round tournaments this season.
That is just a critical thing.
He has been the best player, and the best player tends to win the Worlds.
Yep.
Number 2 storyline. Well, I just mentioned it, so let's go to it. It's got a little bit of a home field advantage for Paul McBeth. I know he doesn't live in Virginia anymore, but he spent a bunch of time here a couple years ago. He built the New London course, and his game is looking pretty sharp. Now, I don't know if it's enough, but we've seen him show up absolutely enormous so many times at Worlds. Last year was the first time in over 10 years that he didn't finish first or second at the World Championships. Okay. I would probably say it's more likely than not that he finishes third or worse again this year, but you can't count him out. Not the way that he has showed up, not after what we saw in 2022, and not after the level that we've seen from him the last 2 months, where he's really looked like he's just a little bit away from winning a tournament again.
Also carries the same thing that we've been talking about for years now, since 2022. He's 1 win away at a major from tying Ken Climo's record. He is looking to extend a streak of having won an Elite Series or a major event every year for the past, got to check the notes, 14 years. Yeah. There are a lot of storylines that come into McBeth, and it's one of those that, like you've talked about, it feels like an important one because this is where he should have the advantage. Take any other tournament, once European Open split and had two courses, not the same for Macbeth. The play at Northwoods as opposed to WR Jackson takes the wind out of Macbeth's sails in terms of, majors. Obviously, you could play well still at USDGC, but this really feels like where Macbeth has his chance to win another world title, to get to 7, to tie Kenny. So many stories that, as long as Paul Macbeth is in the field, will always be kind of circulating and be available for those storylines.
Yeah, and 3 years ago, those would have been the top storylines, and they were. We were talking about, is Macbeth going to tie Climo? Is Macbeth going to pass Climo? Et cetera, et cetera. So can he go 7X? What's next?
Next up, does Ricky break the curse? Can Ricky end his 7-year major drought? Or at the press conference afterwards, will he be talking about how consistent of a player he is?
That's the thing. Is somebody emailed us about this. I'll see if I can find it.
They did. Yeah.
Basically, the argument of the email was that, like, Ricky doesn't believe his own world's take. I'll read this. This comes from Andrew.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew. You can always reach us at upshot@ultiworld.com. Ricky's stance has historically been that consistency over the course of a season is more desirable than a single tournament win, namely a Worlds win. He can say this all he wants and however he wants, but I don't think he really believes it. It seems he feels immense pressure to win Worlds, and it shows in brief moments of frustration. I think of his failure to get the birdie on 14 at 2022 Worlds in Emporia, then leaning over the fence, knowing another chance at a Worlds win was gone. But he keeps the reality of this pressure bottled up because to show it would be, in a sense, an admittance that the tournament really does mean more. I believe if he would own that fact, that this one tournament does mean more, he could pop the cork on that bottled up pressure, play loose, and win another world championship. And I think you could say basically carbon copy that whole thing and about USDGC, and it would be the same kind of story. Obviously, he's won the Worlds, so he's done it. He's done it twice.
The crazy part.
He could do it again. And I mean, assuming that he's okay with the injury thing, and he says that he is, but also that he's adjusting his form. So, like, I don't know what's going on there, but obviously he was white hot coming out of Europe. So he could do it.
That's exactly right. Like, Ricky, it feels like Ricky is just Jekyll and Hyde right now coming into this tournament, where you have that just incredible European streak with just all sorts of question marks around since he's been back in the States with the injury. And so, but we'll see. This is an important one for him, no doubt about it. And probably could rival Macbeth for the number 2 storyline in my mind.
The next one for me, I actually think that it's not the one that's next on the list. I'm going to go to the next one down. I think it's can Calvin finally get a major win?
Yeah.
And for it to be Worlds would certainly feel like the additional kind of bonus. But for him, it's just like anything to get out of the shed and onto the winning tables. I mean, he's now by far the winningest player at Elite Series and majors without a major win. He's got 11 Elite Series wins and no major wins. And, it's going to hang over him until he figures out a way to bring his best game when it matters the most. And at this point, I do think you have to start to wonder, and it's hard to see through his demeanor and style, but it just feels like when the pressure really amps up at the majors, he just cannot get the putter to go in the basket consistently. And he just has these kind of like bad rounds. And I think for a long time, I was willing to say it's just randomness. Like, obviously, he's a great player. He's winning a ton. You look at what he did last season, and that may still be true. But to some extent, I still think that part of what makes majors great is that it asks for you to be able to step up when it really does matter the most. And there's that extra little bit of pressure. And I mean, this is the chance for Calvin to really just end that narrative once and for all, stomp it dead, and be a generational talent that he is.
Calvin, in order to do so, and at the level of play that we're at these days, what happens, and you've talked about, putter doesn't go in the basket, this is the best highlighted for me. Calvin struggles at major by European Open last year, where he was in the lead and came out just so flat. And it's not even that he plays terrible. It's just that he comes out flat and he doesn't have any energy and any urgency to him about those final rounds and when it really matters. And the only time that really like breaks that in my mind, that makes me think of what Calvin could be, is when he was chasing down Chris Dickerson in a monsoon at USDGC and almost did it despite being 7 strokes back, I think it was.
He got low-key robbed on 17.
Yes. Like, that's the Calvin that is needed in order to win a major. And
yeah,
if
you
that
want to see that killer instinct.
Yes. If he taps into that and you see like Monsoon Calvin come out with regularity when it matters, Calvin could be the best player in the world. But he's got to show us that he can accomplish that. And it has to be something on like what's defined Paul McBeth is his ability to do that when it matters, to turn it on, almost like it's a switch. When it's time, when it is go time, when it's crunch time, when you're at the most important tournaments in the world, Paul McBeth flips a switch. And Calvin has to learn how to flip that switch. If he does, he's one of the most successful players in the world. If he doesn't, it's going to haunt him his entire career.
I'm not going to lie to you, though. I do think the course is set up well for him.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
There's some low ceiling-y shots. There's like a lot of power needed. He's got all the tools. Last one. Can Isaac repeat? Gotta be.
Yep. Gotta be number 5.
And he has looked on the precipice of awesome. Yeah. I mean, he was close at Idlewild and just kind of had this weird patch of like lost the touch on the drive, but he looked like the best player there for a round and a half. And Gannon, just in the press conference today, said that Isaac was, I think he said he was 9 down through 10 at Ivy, which I was a little surprised by because of the distance demands. But I mean, he apparently he's been looking super sharp. Definitely, you can't call him a dark horse pick. He's literal reigning world champion. But it does feel like a lot of people aren't going to be looking to him to win this tournament, and don't count him out.
The big thing, when he loses his drive in the woods, like we saw at Idlewild, it depended on like significant luck to stay in. At Ivy, while there is the technicality to it, I think that there is, like, given his types of mistakes and his tendency towards pulling drives a little bit, I think he could compensate for that properly at Ivy Hill, which is where the last 2 rounds are going to be anyway. That actually bodes well for me in Isaac's favor. It's not like he loses the putt in the same way that other players do, that regardless of the course, right, like you're going to just suffer from your putting. It's one that at Ivy he may be able to overcome. Definitely interested to see how Isaac plays this weekend.
He would become the 5th player to win back-to-back MPO Worlds. He'd also become the first player since the start of the Elite Series not to win any Elite Series events or majors between his Worlds wins. So that'd be pretty interesting.
It would be interesting.
So I'm pumped. We didn't even bring up Anthony Barella. I'll talk about him later.
We'll talk about him in odds, but he is not top 5 storyline.
Probably not.
He's not.
Shed?
We'll see. We'll come back. We'll come back to odds.
Let's go to FPO. Of course, the return of the Europeans, and all eyes squarely on Kristen Tatar, who just got married last weekend and was very zen, said she wasn't feeling anxious at the press conference, and said that she's been feeling amazing on these courses. Good luck, everybody else. Okay? I mean, I don't want to call it over before it starts, but like, she's going for her 3rd straight world championship. She's the best player on earth. She just became the first FPO player to hit 1,000 rated. We understand the stories here, and someone else is going to have to play amazing because I just don't see her like laying a fat egg at Worlds.
Well, let me give you the case for Kristen. She's won 6 of the last 8 majors. Granted, both of her losses in that time have come this year. She's now going for her 3rd straight Worlds, as you mentioned, which would make her the 4th FPO player all time to do so, with JK, Val, and Elaine King being the other 3 to do so. She set a record for the highest Worlds rating for an event rating last year at 1013, and her win would mean 3rd solo all time in majors. The reasons to think that Kristen is going to win this weekend are plentiful, and it's really going to have to be a question mark of, do we see the Kristen that defined the middle of European Open, or do we see the Kristen that if she plays her best game, it doesn't matter what anybody else does?
Here is the reason that it hasn't felt quite so inevitable this year. Okay. 6 of the first 7 tournaments this year, starting back at Waco, which includes, for what it's worth, an A tier. But she averaged over 1,000 for the weekend at 6 of those 7 tournaments. Since Music City Open, when she shot 10-12 on the weekend and won, she has not shot a tournament over 1,000 rated. She's gone 987, 997, 985, 957. Now, those first 3 numbers are still pretty good. That's still well above the rating of most FPO players, almost all, basically. But she was not the same level of dominant that we've seen, and she kind of stunk last time we saw her at the Estonian Disc Golf Festival. Since then, she's got married. How much has she been playing? Maybe you could talk yourself into like some reason to think that she's not going to do well. But if you watch the doubles, she looked awesome. She's like piping these gaps at New London, no problem. And she's got precision. Upshots and drives are going to be the thing that is really the most important at Ivy Hill. You have to have distance, and then you have to have, like, let's call it controlled distance, like classic. That's like modern course design at this point. She has that better than anybody. Massive favorite for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. People may say and give you picks of other players, but if you were required, if we handed you a $50 bill and said you have to put this on another player, on a player, who would you put it on? 90% of money goes on Kristen.
We'll get to that more in the odds segment.
I'm saying even odds, though. Like, you just have to pick one player to put money on.
Oh.
Right? Even odds.
If everybody just gets to get even money, it should be 99%. I mean,
if that. Yeah, if not that.
Who's not picking
right.
Kristen?
Exactly the point. Second storyline for me. Can Holland become Kristen's foil? Here's what's important. Holland has won 2 Elite Series, her first 2 Elite Series this year. Neither of them happened when Kristen was present. Did not have the full fields. She did manage to take down Kristen at the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship, but it was muddled in controversy as a result of the OB discussion on hole 18. If that doesn't happen, if that discussion and that controversy doesn't happen, I think we would be talking very differently about Holland than the way that she's talked about. But here's the biggest point about Holland Hanley. I can pick any other professional FPO player and find a deficit in their game on a skills level, on a physical, like actual skills level. If Holland can conquer the mental game, there is no deficit. She is the most well-rounded player after Kristen compared to any of her peers. And a win here at Worlds gives her an opportunity to set herself up as the one that we look to. And it's not a committee anymore. It's Holland Hanley. That's the one who has a chance to beat Kristen when Kristen plays her best game. She's the only one, I think, who has the talent to beat Kristen if Kristen plays at a Kristen level. This is the weekend for Holland to prove it.
I put in the mix of what you just said is Evelina when her putter is on. But
that's such a big one.
I'm with you, though. I'm with you. I think Holland clearly has shown that she can play at the level necessary to like beat Kristen on a good day.
Yes.
And I have to say it would be very, very fun if it is those two battling down the stretch, because I do think we're right on the precipice of it being a rivalry.
Yes.
With what happened at Throw Pink and Holland being the second best player this season, I think, behind Kristen.
Okay, all right.
Listen,
all right. I'll grant it to you.
I'm not saying based on tournament results necessarily.
Sure.
Because you could make the case for Evelina. You could make the case for Missy with the U.S. women's win.
Yes.
I'm not saying in the player of the year, but in terms of straight up skill.
Yes.
And what we've seen from them over the course of the season, I do think that Holland has looked the best.
That's great. Yes.
And especially on a layout like this, where I think Missy isn't going to quite have the juice on these courses.
It's also
specifically Ivy Hill.
Right. It's also so interesting because they've both been winning separately on their different tour tracks. Yeah. And so for them now to merge for the first time at Worlds in months at the most important tournament of the year, love it. Can't ask for a better storyline there.
I have this is completely me speculating, but I kind of feel like they want to beat each other. Like they know that's the player that they're going to have to watch out for at this point.
Look, Charlie, if we really want to manifest this, I want you to change that. We're gonna fix this. According to an anonymous source, a professional texted us. They can't stand each other. They've said privately that their only goal is to beat each other at this World Championships.
Someone's going to clip this and claim you said this as legitimate and not just as a nonsense thing.
Disc Golf Fanatic, don't you dare. This ends up on Reddit.
My next one. Can we see the grindy, get it done, avoid the OB kind of style that will be necessary for Owen Scoggins or Missy Gannon to win this tournament? Missy, by the way, just really quick, Holland back-to-back podiums at Worlds, third place finishes last 2 years. I don't know if Owen and Missy are going to quite have enough from like a ceiling perspective on these courses if, the top arms are throwing well. But we saw Missy last year at Fox and Brewster hang in there for a long time against Kristen. It was not, even on the final day when Kristen had a comfortable lead, it didn't feel like it was completely out of reach.
Yep.
Obviously, ultimately it was. Kristen played great. But so did Missy. Missy played over 1,000 rated disc golf last year at Worlds in her second place finish. And really the one thing that blow up hole on 18, I think in round 4, just brutal, right? But, I think these courses set up a little better for Kristen than Missy compared to last year. But we know that, Missy has looked amazing in the woods. Look what she did at U.S. Women's.
Yep.
Look what she's historically done at Northwood. Like, I think she could shred at New London. And if she can hang in there and avoid the OB, and that's going to be the key for everybody, she or maybe Owen, who definitely shred a woods course. We just watched her tear it up at Idlewild. Like, there's a chance.
Yeah. Favor for Owen is the fact that Brian said that forehands are going to be important on this course, on these sets of courses. That's going to give a nod to Owen. But Big Money Missy shows up at the most important moments and does outthrow Owen. Unfortunately, like you talked about, I think this is a storyline that exists only in a world where Kristen doesn't play her best. If Kristen shoots over 1,000 rated and shoots her, crazy good 10-13, highest rating, of course she would. But if Kristen shoots 1,000 rated, I don't think Owen and Missy have enough to overcome that. And so this is a war of attrition for them. Let's talk about a player, though, who possibly has those tools to overcome that, even if Kristen shoots great. That's the question, though. Fourth storyline, can Evelina, or possibly Henna, find the putter again? Evelina had a stretch of a glimmer of promise at the beginning of the season that looked amazing. That really, she gets wins, she gets a major, and on a wooded course, mind you, a Northwood that could compare to New London in ways. But since then, we've watched it fall off. We've watched implosions at European Open, for example. And so that is just a storyline that we have to ask, because if the putter's there, then this could be a 5-way race, depending on how Kristen plays. If the putter's not, though, it could very quickly settle into something uninteresting at the top, because we only have 1 to 2 players and they may even be spaced apart. I really hope they have the putter. Big question mark for me on this weekend.
And the last thing I think is the Euro player storyline. I mean, this has been something we've been talking about for a couple of years now, but how do the Europeans hang in there against the Americans? Do we see them dominate the leaderboard? Like, we didn't even mention Silva Saarinen yet, but she could have a great tournament and finish top 5. I can see
Absolutely.
that, even with the deficit. From a power perspective, I think you have to consider her at least a contender, given what we've seen from her this season, and how many Americans make the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is not inconceivable to me that we see Kristen, Ev, Hannah, even like a player like Haiti Lina, who just won the distance contest, by the way.
Exactly.
And Silva in the top 5. It's not impossible. Yep. I'm not betting on that, but I do think that the odds, like over under 3.5 Europeans in the top 5. FPO.
3.5.
Maybe I should make it 2.5.
2.5. I'd probably take the over. I'd probably take the over. 3.5. I'd probably take the under. So wherever you set that line,
3.
I think
this feels like 3.
Yeah. But here's what I'll say. Like, if let me frame it a little differently. If I gave you even money on more Europeans than Americans in the top 10,
the top 10.
Do you take that? Top 10. 5 and 5. Do you think you take that bet? Even money?
It's close. I think I'd still take Americans just because I feel like there's like just a numbers advantage for the Americans.
Sure. Right. And that's fair. But let's, it's the closest it's ever been.
Definitely.
Without a doubt. The reason I think this is such an important storyline is if that happened, imagine if the Europeans come over and they do take 6 of the top 10 spots. How can you not say that European professional FPO disc golf is not the elite side of our sport right now? This is a chance to prove it. The Worlds is where it is not that they don't have the same invite qualification process as European Open or as Throw Pink. It is at a time
all comers.
Take all comers. It's at a time that is designed to bring everybody together at the same time. Like, this is the court. It is the World Championship. And I think this is the tournament that the Europeans may show us that they run FPO, not the Americans.
89 players in FPO this weekend. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Jeff Spring of the Disc Golf Pro Tour will join us to talk about Worlds, the 2025 schedule, the cutbacks at the Pro Tour, and more. Stay with us. It's the Upshot. On the other side of the interview, by the way, odds and picks. We'll be back. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Pound just released the Ambassador Octothorpe colorways for Aaron Gossage, Erica Stinchcomb, Gavin Babcock, Ellie Mittling, and Chandler Fry. So go check out all those brand new colorways. They've also got new solid black double convertible Rufuses in stock, new fanny pack colors, and even new Pound branded flight towels. And I gotta be honest, one thing I'm super excited about, maybe you've seen this, new prototype out for the Vagabond, their new side carry bag that's coming soon. They're going into the refinement process, so keep your eyes peeled for another new style of bag if that's what you're into. Go to pounddiscgolf.com to check out all the options. The aches and pains of age can creep up on you quickly. That doesn't mean you have to suffer in silence. Our sponsor, Sunset Lake CBD, has just what you need to soothe your aching joints and calm down those sore spots. As hemp farmers, the folks at Sunset Lake know what it means to be sore after a long day in the fields. That's why they make their products with top shelf ingredients, including CBD they grow themselves. From salves and rubs to gummies and tinctures, Sunset Lake CBD has everything you need to find relief at the end of your day. So if you're out for a long day of disc golf, and I've had this myself, you carrying the bag, maybe playing 2 rounds in a day, and you're getting up in age a little bit, need a little bit of Sunset Lake CBD, like a salve on your back after a long day of disc golf. I'll tell you what, feels amazing. You go to Sunset Lake CBD, offering listeners 20% off all orders if you use code UPSHOT at checkout. So sunsetlakecbd.com, use code UPSHOT at checkout. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. Joining us now on the Upshot is the CEO of the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the tour director, Jeff Spring. Jeff, it's great to have you on. We're right on the eve of the World Championships. I know you just got to your Airbnb. I just got to my hotel. It's always an exciting time. The weather is spectacular here in Virginia. How are you feeling? Are you excited for this weekend?
Yeah, the weather helps, but I'm quite excited. Yeah, the World Championship week is a special type of week for the disc golfer, and it looks like it's lining up nicely.
Is it a different experience? Well, obviously it's different, but how do you feel not having to be sitting in the TD seat compared to last year and back in 2018?
It's honestly drastically different. It's all consuming, especially in the months leading up to the World Championship, and having run it in 2018, you try to ensure that you have some type of quality of life going into the next one in 2023. But for me, you're just all in. You're just all in. You kind of know when you get the bid that a certain amount of time, especially as you get close, you're making the final push to what is a year, maybe 2-year effort, really. And you don't want to leave anything on the table that you don't have to. So you're not going to get everything perfect, but you want to, kind of just do everything you can in those last weeks. So you're consumed, and it's totally different, really. I certainly, know that we've got a lot to do on the DGN side. And so we're tuned in just like always, in fact, more than ever, the Mahmood and the team, has that dialed in, and, I'm here to support that effort, and as well as the PDGA and the LOC's effort. So it couldn't really be a ton different. It's just quite different. Yeah.
Jeff, you highlight exactly where I wanted to go next. DGN, obviously a big undertaking, no doubt about the scale that's going to be involved in the production of the event this coming week. But outside of DGN, when you're not the TD, what role does the Disc Golf Pro Tour take in helping administrate or operate the World Championships?
Yeah, we have a great partnership with the PDGA, and so we're kind of backline operation support depending on what is requested and called for. We've been kind of various levels of involved in this event. I'll be there. We've got a couple hands to help, but the team running it is pretty big as well. So it kind of depends on the LOC, or the local organizing committee. In this case, it's really Ledgestone behind it, and they've got a lot of hands. So there hasn't been a ton of requests, but we're kind of standing by, ready to help and jump in, looking forward to the team on the ground executing.
Well, one of the things we want to talk to you about today is the 2025 schedule, but I actually kind of want to skip ahead to the end of the schedule because it's relevant to this weekend. The Tour Championship for next year is scheduled to be in Virginia. And, one of the questions I had is, are they going to be on both of these courses, one of these courses? But then that got complicated because Paul Macbeth posted on his Instagram earlier today that he found out that, quote, the state of Virginia has given a grant to the county to allow the back 7 holes at New London and some more land to get flattened and turned into a couple business lots. So what does that mean for the Tour Championship and your plans for next year?
So first of all, we haven't set the course schedule, but we were certainly considering just being at Ivy Hill, and that's a possibility, but we will probably not set that until early 2025. So we'll kind of wait and see. My understanding of the potential changes at New London are that there is a lot of land around, and there is more dedicated land available for reformatting the layout. And that the county and that the city of Lynchburg are very invested. And that was actually, a lot of what you do, and, kind of working with a local organizing committee or an event team is check with them and verify with them the type of support that they have from destination marketing organizations or municipalities. And in this case, there is a strong level of support. So, I do understand the concerns, especially from, Paul being the course designer. But I do also have an understanding that the course will continue on at New London, and it obviously is in a great format right now. I think that the pros are giving it a lot of praise, and I hear a lot of definitely top 10 wooded tracks. So, anytime there's a potential setback, it's concerning, but that's our perspective now. And, we'll see how that shakes out. Speaking to, maybe a little bit more, I don't want to jump ahead if you aren't going to ask me this, but just about how we got there on the Tour Championship side. I'll speak a little bit about the last Worlds that we had that didn't really come back, which was a pretty special moment in Utah. And so, once we saw that this was selected by the PDGA, I was interested in understanding whether or not there was an appetite to fund and fuel the growth of high level disc golf by those entities, like the county, the city, the event. Does the event team want to return? Because I do think that some continuity in venues that have a world championship coming through is helpful and good to build on. And we don't want to kind of shirk counties and towns or states or event teams that have really pulled together one of the premier events for the sport. So right away, I was kind of interested in that. And coming down the stretch of schedule building, we looked at basically this is a potential playoff event coming down the coast. You might think, hey, could this happen? And GMC MVP, I don't know if you know this, but the Northeast regional pros are consistently upset with Steve Dodge and I about, kind of having a firm playoff cut line. And so both of us are, open to the idea of cycling in and out of playoff events. So that said, we're trying to build a sustainable schedule. We're also kind of looking at the US DGC and the 6-year impact on the Charlotte community, and trying to, kind of take our presence in Charlotte maybe in a different direction. So, combination of trying to get every other week, for the most part, and some gaps in the schedule, plus trying to change that relationship. Coming down the stretch of schedule building, it just made a lot of sense to try to maybe move that premier event to this location and really come back with a bang next year. That's kind of how we got to the idea of even, kind of being here next year for the Tour Championship and kind of returning with an important event the year after Worlds.
Just to follow up quickly on that, sorry, Josh.
Fine.
The ticket sales have been very strong for Virginia. Historically, we haven't really seen the Tour Championship do great in that department, largely probably because it's coming on the heels of USDGC. And the event has maybe felt a little flat at times because of that. I don't know the timeline for when you made the decision. Did the strong ticket sales and kind of the excitement from the Virginia disc golf community play a role in your decision to want to hold the Tour Championship here in Lynchburg next year?
I can't say it didn't factor in. I don't think it was the leading factor, but if we looked and didn't see the landscape looking the way it is, I think it could have maybe changed that decision. I think that last year we certainly felt like there was a little bit of fatigue, rightfully so. For the two big efforts, up until then, I mean, the first 3 years at Hornets Nest really felt great for us. Even the first year at Nevin, I think generally looking back, if we could have kept building at Hornets Nest, it probably would have been my preference. But there's some bigger picture things going on with Mecklenburg County Parks and Recreation, and they're great partners to us. And, Mark Huther and the Charlotte Disc Golf Club have done amazing things at Nevin too. They put a lot of time and effort into there and made a lot of great improvements and room for spectators. So we're thrilled for this year. It's coming back, and we think it's going to be a step forward from last year, and we're excited. But yeah, I think that all those factors, made kind of a move away, about 3 hours up the road, look like, hey, we can kill two birds with one stone here, and then also kind of open the door to a lot of possibilities in Charlotte. We're kind of building a new, hopefully a new exhibition type schedule for the future, opening up some room in the schedule to be able to do that. And Charlotte's a prime candidate for that. And then also looking at the spring of 2026 already, seeing if we can get there and be in a region, when it's not a big lift on the community of volunteers and disc golf enthusiasts.
You've talked a little bit about kind of this scheduling sustainability, and that transitions me to my next question for 2025. There are some notable omissions, namely DDO, Jonesboro are the two that come to mind, that in the press release says they will be coming back and are scheduled to come back in future years. Is this a strategy to intentionally cycle events on tour, or is it just a temporary measure due to other logistical reasons?
More of the first bucket, more of an intentional strategy. And I don't know that every event will always agree with the shift in this strategy. But I look at it as, these events we hope and intend, and in some cases are already planning on coming back in 2026 or in future years. So I really look at it as like, hey, you're planning now for that event. And in some cases, events that have been even great events, and I think about the GMC too, and our team and, the community there, sometimes you need, a little bit of a refreshed, outlook, and, whether it's spectators on site or people online, seeing exciting new courses. I think we've seen a lot of energy injected into the tour, and especially people's interest with some of the European stops and some really beautiful courses and some really strong efforts from organizing teams over there. So I look at it as, I've really kind of, before even we got into the meat of the schedule setting, I said to all the TDs, I would really like you to look ahead and is there a year out there that you can, kind of say, hey, I'm going to plan 2 years in advance and try to level up. Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the growth at this point, we've grown leaps and bounds. We've had success spectating, but I think to go the next step, we really are looking at partnerships with municipalities and cities and metro areas that are really invested, and they really need 18 to 24 months to mobilize their resources and their planning and really get behind it if they're going to. So that's where, I think the event can benefit and be bigger and activate local businesses and bring in more local charities or spectators or folks that maybe don't know about disc golf because they're not on this endless cycle to just get it done. And at the start of the season, we had some events that were just, kind of trying to get the course ready. And we really want our event teams, to be having a great, perfectly set competition course, but they need to be event promoters too. And giving them enough time and energy to do that is important. So it's not necessarily just about those events, but just a strategic shift, in general. And it worked great, with PCS last year, a little bit more like Vermont, but they're remote in Norway. And, to rally people up there and to really get folks to go, in big numbers, we said, we kind of went back and forth. They weren't sure. And we said, hey, listen, if you're not sure, maybe that means we can say you're going to be back in 25. And as soon as we said that, they're like, great, we can look forward to planning for 25. So part of this is just a shift in getting further ahead, giving assurances to events that they'll return. But, PCS is coming back and we're excited about that. And I think fans will be too.
And just to follow up then, I think you answered it right at the tail end of that answer, but I wanted to confirm these events then have assurances for future years to return to the schedule, and that's kind of part of why they're willing to accept the leaving of tour for 1 year?
Yeah. I think that, at the end of the day, even returning events are going into a bid and contract process. So, if we offer them a bid and a contract for a year, then it's their choice on whether they take that. Sometimes weeks don't always fit. But in this case, our intention is to bring all three of the events that we noted, Swedish Open and the Jonesboro Open, the Dynamic Disc Open, back in 2026. Yeah.
Just one last thing on this point. Did DDO and Jonesboro and Swedish Open come to you and say, hey, maybe we want to take a year off? Or did you come to them and say, hey, we want you to take a year off and that's what's going to happen and you have to deal with it?
There were discussions, but at the end of the day, I think, some of the events, were suggesting and some of the events wanted to keep it on the schedule for 2025. But, out of respect to those teams, I'll kind of leave it there and just say it was a mix. I would say it was a mix of both.
Well, I have to say, schedule setters, whether that's you or your team, it feels like they listened to the Upshot and they just went through the list and they were like, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that. Because we got Kansas City instead of DDO. We got combo Portland course, which we'll talk about the world's implications there in a second. We got, more space in the schedule. I feel like it just is an amazing schedule. It feels a lot better to me overall than some of the things that we've seen in the past. It feels a little bit more fresh. We get the Seattle course on tour. It feels like we're hitting more metro areas where people are excited about disc golf. Generally just feels better to me. Now, I know that you didn't just listen to the Upshot and do what I understand, but I'm just curious for your thoughts on this feels like a refresh. And, you're talking about a 10-year anniversary. This is the 10th year of the tour. And it does feel like a little bit of a different direction than what we've seen in the past. Not like a huge change, but obviously with the change of the Tour Championship and some long-time tournaments that have been on tour kind of getting moved off, at least for this year. How intentional was it that you wanted to kind of shake things up a little bit with these changes?
It was certainly a part of our overall intention, maybe not the driving force, but I think the core structure of the tour is really derived from feedback from the players, and knowing that in the event teams, who are our two biggest stakeholders, the event teams, need us to, put our best effort forward, but also to create conditions in their areas that they're going to thrive. We intentionally have thought about, being in markets, in times and places and in cadences that are going to be successful, and help breed the highest level of success. So, kind of hitting the same market multiple times is intentional, trying to not do that. We're in Texas twice, not 4 times, which was, maybe good for, the tour players.
I forgot to mention that. That was also on our list of.
But that is it's a blend of the stakeholders of the tours, and you got to bring it together and kind of deliver. But for the players, they might not have minded, that they didn't have a lot of travel then, it's nice to be in one place in short stints, but, it asked a lot of the Austin community to have 2 events in a row, asked a lot of the Texas community to have a lot of volunteers available for an entire month. Cause a lot of volunteers take time off, and we need to understand that, maybe we could cycle back around a lot, if Charlotte's in the spring and USCGC's in the fall, they can handle that. But, if we want to make sure that we're treating the volunteers and the staff, of these events and giving them conditions where, hey, we can, make this the big thing in this region. And it also, we do need to, I think I, as a fan also need to be excited to see the course that's being shown that week. And so that's certainly something intentional, that we want to do. We need some new stops, but we also have to figure out a way to continue traditions. And I think that the current system is set up to be able to do that in the future.
Well, I'll ask the question that Charlie was hinting at. With the combination for the Northwest Championship at Milo and Glendoveer, are you planning on bidding for Portland Worlds in 2026?
Yes, we are. For in the PDGA put out bid guidelines that they look at 26 and 27. I think we're driving for 26, and we'll see what they say. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other great bids, and even if we don't get it, I think we're excited about the working together in that area, and we're just going to put our best foot forward and hope that we can get it done. But yeah, I think the team there is really strong. Basically, Stumptown has a little bit of Stumptown Disc Golf Club is definitely one of the biggest disc golf clubs, I think, in the world, in the Portland area. And they have a little bit more, they own the BSF and they own that brand and the history. And they put more effort into there. But a lot of the Stumptown folks that are Stumptown members, help the Portland Open, which the tour owns. And I founded in 2019. And we kind of with Ryan Cole, who used to be on the board of Stumptown Disc Golf Club. Used to be the president, I think, but had taken the job and is now our operations and logistics director. So he's the TD of the Portland Open now. And then Jesse Tomeno at the BSF. So I think the teams are primed to work together great. I think doing this now allows us to work out any kinks, in how we operate, but also allows us to put a pretty appetizing partnership program together to really try to build towards the World Championship year, if it's awarded, whatever year it is. So, I think there's a lot of good things going for it. And I think that, it's great that OTB, first of all, majors on the West Coast, I think is exciting. And so I'm excited that OTB is bringing the Champions Cup and the effort to bring Worlds to the West Coast again is also pretty exciting. So I'm excited to be a part of it, support the team, and hopefully we can do some big things.
Well, listen, since I've started following professional disc golf, GMC has been my favorite tournament. I think it's amazing to watch. The Northwest Championship is definitely going to rival that, and I am thrilled about a Portland Worlds bid. Bring it to the West Coast.
Portland World, the last Portland Worlds is like the GOAT Worlds.
Well, that's what, I think I've told you guys in interviews, it was a big motivating factor for me. I had started Brewster Ridge in 2012 at Smugs and started going to, Vibram Open, USDGC. And in 2014, it was the first time I was like, I'm going to go to Pro Worlds, and it was in Portland. And it was a pretty transformative experience. First of all, because the area is great. I love the outdoors, and it's a very outdoors city, and there's a lot to do. But it's also, seeing, the final round and subsequent playoff with 3,000 people in 2014 at Blue Lake was mind blowing. And I said, well, maybe this could be a whole different path forward than I thought, because of the excitement, the volume, the culture, how many people were so into it. It was just really kind of I saw, old guys that have been playing since the 80s, because it's just there's a big culture there, that were just totally enamored and in it and telling everybody about, where disc golf started. And, so yeah, it's great. And that Worlds was motivating.
So just one little quick thing, you would take, if you're going to send in your bid, you say we want 2026, but if they said we're going to give you 2027, you'd take it.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the team, but I think I think so. Jesse and Brian are going to lead the bid process as the TDs of the events, but I think the concept is 26, and I guess we'll see. So, but I would assume so, but I won't put a stamp on that until the team gets together and talks about it. But.
You mentioned something that I think I've seen some people wanting to know more about, which is exhibition events. We used to have some of those things on tour. We've seen little things here and there, Celebrity Pro-Am. And so are there plans to bring that back for 2025? I was thinking you could consider maybe big money skins at Eagles Crossing.
Well, I mean, that sounds great. We would love to get the Eagles Crossing. We've worked with Philip before, and hope to work with him again. I think the challenge there was solving the tech problem, but we've actually taken some strides forward in that. And we feel like we could probably go back and try again. So you never say never, and the other part of the question, we are going to try to lean into a few more exhibition offerings next year. We want to bring the Celebrity Pro-Am back. We will announce an all-star venue and date. But with that, we're kind of looking around match play, maybe even like in-season tournament type regional concepts, and no promises there. But the NBA got brought back their in-season tournament with the NBA Cup. So maybe we can get Emirates to sponsor us as well, and we can do our in-season tournament. But I guess it's just Emirates. But the possibilities are exciting because, we want to do something that's not necessarily as heavy a lift, or feels compulsory to players. It's not points driven, but it's fun. It's mixed up. And I think we do hear, we did the match play championship, in Bailey. And I think that's a good example of like what we can do with a match play. Bailey's at 9,000 feet. It's a mountain course in Colorado, and it's one of the coolest mountain courses. Unfortunately, RIP, Bailey's not there anymore, if you didn't know. But Colorado still has some great mountain courses. But we could take this a little bit more to courses that aren't necessarily well suited for, an elite series or a major. And so I think highlighting new, fresh, locations. I know that, we want to get more mountain golf in there if we can. And the exhibition schedule will allow us to more flexibility and to take it to, maybe burgeoning disc golf communities or places that, deserve, some pros to come by. We also could do it with, 16 players, or 32 players. And so, there's a lot of ideas we're playing with. And I think that the schedule being a little bit more spaced out is going to open up more opportunity for that.
Got to do doubles. We need a doubles tournament.
That's a good idea. If anybody out there has concepts of how elite pro doubles should work, I've heard like you got to combine your two ratings and it can't be over a certain number, for instance. I've heard a couple other ideas, whether it should just be best shot or should we throw an alternate shot or a worse shot? I don't know if the perfect elite pro double format is out there. It is pretty awful to watch alternate shot or worse shot, I think.
Please do not do worse shot.
But yeah, I think, we maybe need the right format. So if somebody out there knows one, I know Yuli's poked me about this too. For some reason, I've heard Yuli talk about doubles before. So
they are fun to watch.
Just in an unfortunately like less fun direction, there have been some pretty now well publicized cutbacks at the Pro Tour. We know the industry overall has been in a little bit of a flat or down period, depending on who and what part of the industry you're looking at. What is the extent of the cutbacks at the Pro Tour this last couple of months, and what does that tell us about where you are as a business moving forward?
Yeah, certainly, not a fun topic to talk about, and not a fun topic to deal with. And, we take it, really seriously, try to avoid any, cutbacks or expense reductions or, letting anybody that we've worked with, go. But, I'll frame it this way, for 2020 to 2021, three, the tour has grown really rapidly year over year. Our revenue's grown. We've been in a growth position. We actually thought last year, might slow down a little bit for us. But we kept seeing growth. And I think we talked about that in off season. We saw, more growth and surprisingly, as other areas of the industry maybe flattened or receded. But, I think this year we found, really not immune. And, tried to think, about the planning in the off season in a way that, would protect the downside. But, the market correction has been, significant, I would say. So, with that significant, change, we've had to make some changes to our planning. And really, I'll put it this way. We've really always been positioned, to grow, to take on new opportunities if they came along, and to have the bandwidth to do that. And a lot of the early years was figuring out, how is this sustainable for our team, that's on the road grinding and trying to figure out, how to just take some time off. And so unfortunately it's like, working towards an equilibrium where there's sustainability for all of your contractors and all of your employees, and kind of feels, like, hey, there's new opportunities coming. So we got to be prepared to keep going. From the board perspective, when you see the market correction, obviously in the face of maybe persistent economic inflation and maybe poor, general economic conditions, we had to take these steps to really just protect the downside, of the tour. And the way I would share it with you is that we're just kind of positioning to go into next year, knowing that, perhaps the plateau there will continue. So we don't have to make bigger adjustments. But, even though that, some of these changes are hard, maybe surprising, challenging, and in some cases gut wrenching, because we care about everybody we work with immensely. And, you don't want, that to affect people, or, kind of roll out in a negative way. You just can't avoid that at certain times, and you got to keep going forward. And, I'm still very bullish, on us returning to a growth pattern. But it's kind of a little bit of looking at the churn out of pandemic era players. How sticky was the game for them? When are they leaving and who's staying, versus, a pretty persistent growth curve for 20 years of somewhere around 15% in the industry, where you can look back and see that growth. And, next year, the year after, if we never had a pandemic, we're probably going to, there's going to be a line crossing there at some point. So, I feel pretty strongly, the folks that I talk to in the industry, that, by the end of next year, the growth signs are going to continue to return. And we're just positioned to be, kind of financially, smart. We want to be sturdy for the industry. We want to be there. We want to be positioned to keep growing. And there's a lot of growth opportunities that I'm looking at every day. But in the meantime, we got to show a little bit of discipline. And it's kind of where we're at. We've talked a lot about like where we've gone from our ownership and from our board's perspective. And the point we're at is, we have to protect a downside, that is real. And I think it's real for a lot of companies in the sport. And, we're doing what we can to show discipline and, prepare for the next growth spurt that we frankly want to initiate in the coming years. So
I want to use this context to frame the question that Charlie and I ask every time we have you on the show, typically in the off season, but we're close. The question that we've asked for the past 3 or 4 years has always been about, will the DGPT turn a profit this year? And in previous years, it has been about that growth mindset and investment in infrastructure, technology, personnel, what have you, as it rapidly grows to reach the state that it's in today. With these cutbacks, what is the projection for when the DGPT is able to kind of stand on its own 2 feet and be able to turn a profit? Do you have a year that you're hoping, and has that changed?
I think we are now. Yeah, I think we are now. It's just about whether we're positioning ourselves to, drive profit operationally or how fast and rapidly we want to grow. And those are board decisions, and they're fueled by economic and industry conditions. And I think that's kind of what we're speaking to. But, I think that, we've grown so fast and been in that mindset that, if we are looking at like, okay, hey, we want to downshift to neutral for a minute. We can do that. And we have created robust and healthy revenue streams that are durable. And we really believe that. And so, looking at, where those are going to take us, we can operate, profitably and sustainably within those boundaries now, and so part of what we're doing is doing that and ensuring that that's what we're doing next year as we kind of tread water, I guess, and look at, hey, where's the next investment that's really going to help us drive forward growth? And hopefully it's not just for us. Hopefully it's taking some of the industry with it if we're able to do it. But the things that I'm seeing in terms of that growth are, what we talked about before, municipality. We scaled enough to kind of say, hey, does this metro area, they're taking interest in us. We're building these connections and relationships. And then there's this kind of self-generating growth cycle you can get into if you build those relationships and you have them help grow spectators on site. And with more spectators, they want to fund the event because they're interested in destination marketing. Come to Austin, Texas, come to Nashville, right? Come to Salt Lake, those type of things. And we feel that we've scaled to the point where let's invest the time and energy there and get into this growth cycle, that, maybe will be less volatile than the last 5 years, after, launching into the pandemic basically. But, the same thing is starting to percolate with, media, cause really on site and online, those are our two things. And on site, I just described, but online, we're having opportunities to license our stream, what we're producing now, and get it out to more eyeballs, but also generate revenue with that licensing, right? With sharing media rights. And I think that that's also that kind of self growth cycle where, just by licensing the content more, you're distributing it in front of more eyes, right? But it's also fueling, the revenue to support growth, for your operation. So I think that those two things we're really trying to lean into as we go forward. And those two things alone, without outside growth capital, will help us continue some persistent growth. Now, if we have bigger opportunities, I do think that we'll be well positioned in the coming years to say, hey, we do need to, maybe invest or find a way to raise some growth capital for a bigger opportunity. But that's all about, kind of timing and opportunity coming together.
When you mentioned the downturn, you said a significant downturn. Are you feeling that fairly consistently across the board, in terms of ticket sales, which that obviously spectators have been down, particularly in the US. It's you can see it straight up on the broadcasts. Are you seeing that on DGN? Are you seeing that on disc sales? Is that pretty evenly distributed, or do you feel like there's certain things that are working well and others that are not?
Yeah, I would say probably the least affected is viewership. I feel like the subscription, after, migration challenges, that we've gotten over, has slowly continued to grow back to expectation. So we feel good about that. I think that ticket sales on site and our retail is connected, but, talking to most manufacturers and retailers, depending on who you are, you're flat or maybe down, and we're kind of in the same boat there. So yeah, I think that I would say, the industry at large is, you're always kind of discussing this with your partners, your allies, your friends, people that you work with. And, it seems to be, pretty similar. I don't think that there's a ton of folks, hitting the panic button or anything like that. And, I think that there are good signs of growth too. I've talked to some companies that, retailers that are like, hey, we're going to be up a little bit. In some areas, we're going to be up a little bit, but There are some areas where, you raise an eyebrow and say, all right, we gotta think about this. So yeah, I would say, we're happy to see, DGN, continuing to look like it's growing, this year. And, other than that, I think it is pretty consistent, that, we're a little under what we'd like to be.
The last point of the revenue side, I think that we haven't discussed yet, are corporate sponsorships, for the tour. How and what level are those sponsorships? Are you finding the kind of sponsorships necessary that you're looking for, hoping for, in order to run these events?
Yeah. Part of our schedule shift early to August this year is really to align better with sales cycles of bigger companies. And, we've got a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of discussions going, and I see a bright future there. Right now, it feels like, we're kind of doing the same thing this year that we did last year. I was really thrilled to re-sign Barbasol to a 2-year deal. We brought on some new companies, notably One Shot just came online for another partnership through the end of the season. And I think that we're kind of really excited about 2025 and going forward. But yeah, partnership kind of the same boat, is that, it's a tough economic overlay right now for us. And, that said, we've got a lot of great partners that have been consistent inside and outside the industry. And, I'm excited for some announcements to come in the future.
All right. Well, Worlds is less than about a little over 12 hours away as we record this. What are your thoughts on the competition this weekend, the courses, the players that you're expecting to see make a splash? Just some fan talk here.
Yeah. I think it's a good balance. It's always good to have a wooded and more open course to get a well-balanced champion. But I do think that Ivy Hill is proving to be long and hard from the feedback I've been hearing from players and in the media. So I think you got to be able to put a move on a disc to be up there. So maybe some of the usual suspects there that we've seen pop off over the season. I don't think you can count out Ricky, who seems due to break his major drought at some point coming up. But AB and Gannon are up there. I know that I was interested to see Isaac, and this is all on the MPO side to start, kind of show a flash of form, last week coming up, because I was really blown away watching him make the courses at Smugs look like child's play last year. Honestly, like he was just unbelievably dialed. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of, the first thoughts in my mind there. Yeah, on the FPO side, it's hard to get away from Kristen, because, no matter what the form, it just seems like the moment, when she needs it, the form comes back and shows up, and I don't think that you can really move off of that. But, you guys, I think have noted, rightfully so, coming into the season and throughout the season, the form that Holland Hanley's been in, and with her distance and capabilities, I think that you have to watch for that. Obviously, I think big game, big money, Missy is, is got to be in the mix. But like, I also, I've heard that, Ivy is going to challenge, you got to put a move on it. So, and Missy can throw it, but I also think that it would be an incredible story to see Own up there. But, I would downgrade that a little bit, not because of anything other than, strength, skill set and strength, but you never know. She surprises us all the time. So
Jeff doubts the dog. We all heard it.
I don't doubt it, but
she'll embarrass you. Watch out.
So I basically probably just described chalk, which is probably safe for me to do. But so I'm not reaching deep or anything. But yeah.
Well, the chalk, it tends to get chalkier when we play more rounds and we play really hard long courses. And so I don't blame you. Josh and I will reveal our picks in just a little bit. All right. Jeff, thanks so much. See you out at the courses, and hope you can enjoy your weekend here in Virginia.
All right. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Jeff Spring with us here on the Upshot. We'll be right back. More Worlds Talk coming up. Welcome back to the Upshot. Great to talk with Jeff as always. Time to dig into the betting odds for this weekend. These come courtesy of Moonrocks in our Discord in the hashtag Degenerate Bets channel. You can join the Discord and get all of our Rapid React segments and more with an Ultiworld Disc Golf subscription. So let's dive in. You want to start in MPO or
FPO? Let's start in FPO.
Okay. And we'll put these up on the
this one should be quicker.
put these up on the screen for our YouTube audience. The line has moved a bunch here. Moonrocks had Kristen at around minus 200 earlier. Now Kristen is your very heavy favorite at minus 300, 75% implied odds. And then you've got a four-way tie for second place in terms of betting odds. Owen Scoggins, Evelina Salonen, Missy Gannon, Holland Hanley all coming in at 12-1. So bet 100 to win 1,200. Haley Kings, Silva Sarnen 25-1, Paige Pierce 50-1, Henna Blomroos, Ella Hansen 70-1, and then at 100-1, Elina, Natalie Ryan, Kat Murch, and then Valerie Mondahano, Annika Sten, and Emily Weatherman at 150-1. So, Josh, obviously, you were saying earlier, well, if you get even money, everybody's betting on Kristen. Well, okay, that's why we have betting odds. Do you still bet on Kristen at minus 300?
No, it's not worth it there. That is just not worth the value.
Do you see value here?
Man.
The lines
maybe
are pretty tight.
Holland. Maybe Holland.
12-1 Holland. That would get some money from me.
That would get a little money for me. I might kick a silver dollar at Evelina. And that's probably it for me.
A silver dollar.
A silver dollar. That's it.
At minus 200.
Oh.
When we had the discussion going in the channel earlier in the week,
yep,
I was like, I'm betting Kristen at minus 200.
Sure.
And at minus 300, I just don't know if I can do it. I still might do it. I still think that might be under where it should be.
Charlie, you're losing.
Which is crazy.
You're winning so little money that your bookies take, like, his cut is going to be more than what you win from Kristen.
I'm well up lifetime as a sports better.
I
in
fully
disc
believe
golf,
that.
I'm not so sure, but
look, there's a reason this subreddit or sub Discord is called Degenerate Bets.
That's right. Here's what I would probably do. I would put, let's say, a half unit on Holland, and I'd put like 5 or 10 units on Kristen. Basically, I'm hedging, but I don't know if I see anybody else winning.
I don't either.
Maybe Ev. You're right. I mean, you name the players who I think could win.
Right. And that's the thing. It's funny thing is, like, I think that those players are either going to win it over Kristen or they're going to be in 5th, right? Or 10th, or, that's not my podium. I'll tell you right now, that's not going to be my podium for picks. But if Kristen doesn't win it, those are the only other two that I think really are going to.
Are you tempted by Paige at 50-1?
I'm not.
Too much OB out here, I think.
I think so too.
Okay. You know where there's value?
Okay.
And I understand some people maybe don't want to talk about this or whatever, but it's Natalie Ryan at 100-1.
Natalie Ryan at 100-1 is a lot of value.
Natalie's playing pretty good last week.
Yeah.
Playing at home in Virginia, knows New London, has the arm speed for playing well on these courses. I mean, it's not crazy. 100-1 is good value.
Yeah. Yep. You're right.
I mean,
that's the value.
Natalie should be better odds than Paige, I think. So, like, if you're looking for pure value bet, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to MPO.
Okay. That was easy.
I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I'll give you some highlights. Your favorites: Gannon Burr at 4+400, so 4-1. Ricky Wysocki at 5-1. Calvin Heimberg at 7-1. Macbeth at 8-1. Isaac Robinson and Kyle Klein at 9-1. I'll go through the players who have better than 35-1 or better. Antela, Dickerson, and Barella all 15-1. Matty O 25-1, and then Ezra Robinson, Simon Lizotte, Eagle McMahon at 35-1. Eagle at 35-1 that's generous that he's matching some of these other, like how does Ezra Robinson and Eagle McMahon have the same odds?
Yeah, I'd say I'm gonna
like
be
you're
honest.
giving a lot of credence to the past for Eagle McMahon.
Yeah.
Ezra Robinson has been like all over the podium. That dude could win this weekend.
There's my value. I'll tell you right now. Like, Moonrocks is just like, I think he stuck Ezra there because it just further cements my like favoritism argument that everyone's saying about Ezra. I was like, okay, I'm gonna come in rational about this, and then they stuck Ezra Robinson at 35-1, and I'm running over to bet on that like it's a slot machine, and I'm just dumping my money into it.
Vegas knows.
They do, man. I really think it's good value there.
That's a bait bet for sure. Of the favorites, what do you like? Sub 10-1.
For betting purposes?
Yeah.
Probably Burr. I don't think there's enough movement for me between Burr and Klein to really want, like, I don't see Ricky, for example, 4-1 for Burr, 5-1 for Ricky. That is not enough difference for me in those odds in terms of value for me to leave what, like, my preferential pick of Burr being the favorite.
Yeah, I think what are the odds that the winner comes out of that group of 6 players? 80%?
What did you say?
Is it 80%? Is that too high?
I think that's too high. Oh, I was hovering around like the
If you think it's
mark.
50-50, let's make a bet.
I think it might be 50-50.
Okay, I will take those top 6
Those
players
5.
and you
6.
get
There is 6. Okay.
And you get everybody else. You get the field.
Gosh, I'll take it.
Let's
like
go.
this is probably a bad bet for me. There's so many players that have won this season too. Like I get Antela, I get Dickerson, who's a former major winner. I get Anthony Barella, who's got 4 wins this season. I get Matty O, who's won it at Maple Hill. I got a lot of players that could. Presnell, who's won this season at a major.
Brian Earhart was telling me he thinks Joel Freeman's got a chance to do really well out here.
Won doubles.
Likes the way the course is shapes up for him.
Yeah. 1 doubles. And honestly, Joel is Joel Freeman is putting his deficiency usually?
I haven't looked at his stats this year.
Let me pull that.
Feels like he's just been off the pace in general.
Agreed. But my point is that if he really did play that well during doubles with Own, I wonder how much of that was like Own putting carrying kind of thing. Yeah, 77th in C1X putting, or 79%. Not great.
Look, I want to pick Anthony Barella to do something this weekend, but the guy's slumping again.
He is slumping again.
He just finished 43rd at Idlewild. 1014 event rating. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, this has been a crazy season for him. He was so red hot. He didn't miss the top 5 for like 2 months and then slumped and then came back and finished top 10 in 3 straight tournaments, including winning Des Moines Challenge, and is slumping again and hasn't finished better than 36th at the last 3 tournaments. What am I supposed to do with that?
I don't know what you're supposed to do with that, man.
What? Bizarro, dude.
I'm glad I've got him in my bucket. I'll tell you that. If I'm taking a bucket of players, like
I hear you.
I love throwing him in a bucket.
Like with his power, he should be able to tear it up out there, but can he stay between the lines? I'm just worried about the OB. You have to avoid the OB. That's like how you're going to succeed at Ivy.
Yeah.
15-1 feels like a fair price for what it's worth.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
Ezra Robinson, boy, that's tempting, man. 35-1.
I'm telling you, man, that's my sucker bet. Like I saw that and I was like, yep. take my money.
All right. So if Gannon Burr, Ricky Wysocki, Calvin Heimberg, Paul Macbeth, Isaac Robinson, or Kyle Klein win this tournament, then I win.
Yep.
That's nice. I'll take that.
That is nice. Okay. I want to look at something really quick. I'm gonna pull Ezra Robinson's profile on Statmando. I'm curious to know how he does at majors. Listen, we are on this show. We look at major performance and we use it predictively, and whether that's correct or not. So he was 7th at European Open. He was 3rd at Champions Cup this year. And then last year, he was 45th at USDGC, but 15th at Worlds, 12th at European Open, and then 28th at Champions Cup last year. And then he's got, no other top 10s. He's also playing his best golf.
Yep.
I 35-1. I like Ezra Robinson better than I like Matty O this weekend.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably the only one odds wise. If distance really is that much of a premium, then maybe he should be above Nicholas Antala. But after that, I think everybody else probably deserves to be ahead of him. But yeah, 35-1. That's quite the jump.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Just a little quiz.
Yeah.
We all know Isaac Robinson won the World Championships last year.
Yep.
Who finished 2nd at the World Championships last year? It's trivia time.
Was it Kyle Klein?
Nope, he finished 6th.
Ugh.
I'll give you a hint. Sort of. Eagle and Matty O tied for 3rd.
Okay, Matty O is going to be my next guess, so that definitely glad that rules that out. It wasn't Calvin, was it?
Calvin finished 5th. You get one more guess.
Okay, I've basically cleared out the next 6 people after this second place person. Was it Rick?
Ricky finished 12th.
No, Rick had a bad. I don't know who it was. I have no idea.
Anthony Barella.
Was it really?
It was.
I never would have gotten that.
Remember, he got that eagle. He shot a 51 on the final day. Some other guys shot a 50. Because Proctor and Ezra Robinson and Matty O and Eagle all shot a 50. And Eagle had those 2 amazing rounds back to back. He shot the 49, which is the hot round in round 4, and then he backed it up with the hot round on the final day, but was too slow at the start.
Yep. Literally, all I remember from Worlds last year is Isaac Robinson, Kristen Missy. That's it. That's the line of my memory
I get it. I feel like people forget that Barella was 2nd at Worlds last year.
Yep. Happy to have him in my bucket. That's for sure.
All right. Well, let's get down to it. Let's make our picks. It is time. We'll start an FPO. Look, are you taking Kristen?
Taking Kristen.
Got to take Kristen. There was a little Instagram thing from the Pro Tour that was we asked MPO players who's going to win in FPO. And it was Kristen. And then Double G is I'm going to take Jessica. And then someone picked Owen. And there were a couple other people, but it was just Kristen over and over and over again.
I love that for Double G.
I know.
That's incredible.
Hype your bays. I don't think they say that anymore, but who you got in your 2 and 3 spots?
Yeah, my 3 spot is gonna go to Holland Hanley. I really, really want the showdown, but I don't think it's gonna be there this year, unfortunately. Maybe again at Throw Pink or something. But for right now, Holland's going to get the 3 spot. I think though that Missy Gannon is going to have another close year. She succeeds in the biggest pressure moments when the money is on the line. And, I can't help, and I know it's not a perfect comp, but I can't help but thinking a Hynolian Ivy Hill with a wooded Northwood New London that Missy can't Missy's gotta be up there. It's got to be. So give me the 2 spot for Missy. And that's my podium.
Oh my gosh. You really want to, you're trying to talk me into Missy right now, but my 2 spot, I'm going Holland.
Okay. You've got the showdown.
I'm willing it into existence. I want to see the showdown.
I also just think about it.
Holland's game is super well suited for these courses. In the 3 spot, God, you almost talked me into Missy, but I'm gonna stay with it. I'm back on the train. Evelina Salonen, ride or die. I already died because I stopped riding.
Yeah. I can hear it in your voice. You don't believe that this time.
I do. I genuinely do, because I do think that like shot shaping off the tees is going to be number 1 at these courses, and I think that that's like basically she's number 1 on tour in that. I see you leaning over to your microphone, so just go ahead and say whatever you want to say right now.
Double or nothing on our bet. Missy finishes higher than Evelina.
On which bet?
So we have our MPO pool that you've got the top 6. I've got everyone else. Okay. Double or nothing with Missy and Evelina. Fine, Let's add a second one for FPO. Okay. All right.
Okay. Love it.
Okay. There we go. We don't need to say anything else. There it is.
There it is.
We're putting money on it. We believe it. We're going with it. I believe you now, Charlie. I believe that you believe it.
Well, we're going big. We're going big for Worlds. We're going $20 a pop here.
Sure.
All right, $20 a pop.
Okay.
All right, so let's go to MPO. I think there's way less certainty about what's going to happen here. I'll take you through my podium.
Okay.
I'm going to start in the 3 spot. I'm going with I don't know if this is a good pick or not, but I'm going to just trust what I've heard and what I've seen the last couple of months. I'm going to put Isaac Robinson back on the podium. I don't think he's going to win, but I do think that he is going to be right there. He looked so good for a long stretch of last weekend, and I think he sounded confident in the press conference. Gannon said he's playing great. He was tearing up Ivy Hill. That's enough for me, and I think he's clearly shown that he can perform under pressure, given what we saw from him last year.
I think it would give him a lot of credibility too, to come back and finish well at Worlds.
In the 2 spot, do I even believe this? I'm saying he's going to get back on the horse. 1st and 2nd at World Streak, restarts. Paul Macbeth, number 2, playing on the course that he designed. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the guy plays great when it matters the most.
He does.
And it's not like he's been way off the pace the last few months. Like last few tournaments, he's looked pretty darn good. Let's take a look at the numbers here. Swedish Open 2nd, Krokel 6th, European Open 3rd, a forgotten 3rd place, by the way.
Yeah.
European Disc Golf Festival 2nd, Ledgestone 8th. That's a lot of top 10s all in a row for Mr. Macbeth. Okay, so there's that. Number 1, off the schneid, Calvin Heimberg out of the shed. This is the one. The haters just wanted to just deny this man as major, and it's not going to happen. I think his game is going to be superb on these courses. And he also has been playing well, by the way. Last 3 tournaments, 3rd, 2nd, 4th. Well, sorry. I should say last 2, because the 4th was mixed doubles. Back-to-back podiums at Ledgestone and Idlewild. Sorry, a little too quick on the PDGA page. Look up there.
Settle down there, Charlie. Easy there.
Whoa, a big 4th place in mixed doubles. He's ready. He's locked in.
Listen, I understand why.
And I know, like, I can already hear it coming. Oh, he could have won at Idlewild last week, and he didn't.
No.
Joey
I don't
Buckets
care. I don't care about that. Don't care about Idlewild. Don't care. That is so far gone from my memory. I forget that it even happened. Don't care. Calvin came out at the European Open last year with a lead for the first time in his career, and he couldn't do it. You will never, ever catch me picking Calvin for a major until he finally moves out of that shed. And I got no reason to think it's going to be this weekend.
I get it. I knew you were not going to pick Calvin, so nothing changes. Go ahead. Let's hear what you've got.
All right. My 3rd spot. I love Ezra Robinson to get on the podium here. Picking the other Robinson brother. Here's why. 2 reasons. First, he's got a semblance of a forehand. Isaac oftentimes makes up for it. He definitely has the better backhand. But I think Ezra having some bit of a forehand is going to be an important role given how bad the rough is at New London, as Brian has talked about. Second reason is Ezra plays with like a loose cannon, like aggressiveness that I think is going to suit him well in pushing for the leaderboard win over the course of 5 rounds. I don't think Ezra is the best player, and like I said when we were talking about odds, I don't even bump Ezra to top. He maybe like gets top 10, but definitely not top 5 in terms of favorite. The way that he is going to succeed over the course of 5 rounds is by playing a like pedal to the metal style of golf that got him a hot round at Worlds last year and has gotten him a podium at Northwoods at Champions Cup this year. He's shown us that he can do it for multiple rounds, and I think it's what's going to give him the ability to do so again this weekend. In my 2 spot, I've got Ricky Wysocki. I am going to think that his injury is kind of corrected, and after that, I mean, he really has looked really, really good lately. Again, like Idlewild to me is just...
I got a little spooked by the injury situation. I was going to put him on the podium, and I'm just a little too cagey about it.
I don't blame you at all. I do not blame you at all. But I think when it comes to Worlds, 99% of the time players are just like, injury or not, like there's a certain level of focus that I think overcomes injury. Think Kristen, a couple of years ago. Rick has been looking really good lately. Despite that injury, he still won. Was he injured at Tallinn? I think so. Where did his injury happen?
Ricky got hurt at that Estonian tournament. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
He had that insane opening round.
Yeah, I was trying to remember because I knew Kyle was hurt. And I couldn't remember if Ricky was also hurt that one.
Yeah, he got hurt at that tournament. He was like dealing with it in the final round and didn't play particularly well.
Listen, he says he's feeling good and he's already shown us he can push through it. Give me Ricky in the 2. But in the number 1, give me the era of Gannon Burr. Welcome the king. Give him his crown. He is winning Worlds and on path to put together one of the most dominant seasons in recent years. And with a couple more wins, could have what stands for a while as one of the best seasons of the post-COVID era and could stand for decades. The World Championship is the next title that he needs in order to put that together.
There it is. Our picks are in the books. Oh boy. 5 rounds coming up in Virginia. Rapid reacts every day following the MPO round. And so join us in the evenings for what will be a raucous Discord conversation. I can't wait. Josh, I will talk to you tomorrow night.
Okay, I'll see you then.
That's going to do it for today's edition of the Upshot. TBD on what we're going to do for Thursday. We may release one of our rapid reacts, or we may not have a show. That's also possible. So TBD.
TBD.
Maybe we will pop on and do something short. I don't know exactly yet, but we'll let you know. But a great time to sign up as a subscriber and just join us for what are going to be basically full shows every day. Cannot wait. And so we will talk to you tomorrow night if you're a subscriber. And we'll see you in the Discord, everybody. I've got Missy Gannon in the 2... no, I don't.